Hey crafty cuties, welcome back to Paper Terrace. Today we are finally going to bind our journal, and so I'm going to go over all of the supplies that you need if you are doing a single 3-hole pamphlet stitch binding for your journal. If you do want to see other forms of binding, I have lots of videos on my channel. I will try to find those links and put them down below, but grab your supplies, and that's going to be some scissors, some type of an awl. You could also use a thumbtack or just something to poke holes, a needle that has a hole or an eye that's large enough for the thread or binding string that you're going to use. I'm going to use this embroidery floss from Dollar Tree, the yellow and white. Graph paper is going to make this very, very simple to create our template for where to bind the holes, and then your signatures and your journal, and let's go. Okay guys, I promise you can do this. Like I said, there are other ways to bind that include like a hidden binding, and you could do, I don't know, there's all kinds of ways you can look up. So we're gonna go oh, I forgot to change out this tag, but that's okay. I'll leave this here for now. We'll get to that. It's going to be easiest to take your tassel off if you're able. I know that I showed this you know, in the last step, but I like to get it out of the way, so I'm gonna go ahead and just remove mine right now. You can do it with the tassel on, but it's gonna be a little bit easier without. So you want to go ahead and trim your graph paper or whatever paper you can find down to the same size as your spine. Maybe just a hint smaller, because you want to make sure that it can definitely fit within your within the spine. So I'm gonna just kind of go like that, and then I'll cut that down. I'm pretty sure I saw a request where someone asked if I could do a hidden binding tutorial for this journal. I actually did that on the last Dollar Tree journal, so like I said, I'm gonna try and find that for you guys down below, but I've already done it. This is just what I'm comfortable with, and I find it to be the absolute easiest for beginners or just anyone. Okay, so I'm just double checking this can fit within my spine. First step, guys, most important step is to write a T at the top. You really think you might remember where the top is, but I promise you guys, this is the hugest reason why you might mess up is by mixing this up and turning it around the wrong way. Okay, so after I write top, I also want to mark where my tassel hole is, because I don't want my binding holes to go up past that, just in case. Now, this is just how I like to do it. There are several ways, but I'm gonna take my paper, fold it in half like this. Okay, now I'm gonna take this and fold it in half one more time. Try to keep everything lined up really good. Okay, now that just gave us a really easy guide for where the 3 holes can evenly be spaced out, 1, 2, 3. Now I like to space mine out just a little bit more, so now what I'm going to do, you can have this be where your 3 holes are if that's what you would like. But I'm going to take this top one and I'm gonna fold it down to this first fold line. I'm hoping this is not too confusing for you guys, and I'm doing the same thing to the bottom. Okay. So I'll draw a line so you guys can see where this ends up a little bit better. So I'm gonna just take my line, or sorry, my pencil, and go like this so you can see. So this is the bottom line, the middle line, and that very top line. I don't do this when I'm making my own template. Again, this is just so you can have a better visual. So I think you can see now that the 3 holes are going to be 1, 2, 3, and I just like that they're spaced out a little bit longer on the entire spine, so that I feel like the pages feel a little bit more stable this way. But it works no matter how you really have them spaced out, honestly. Now, you want to figure out how many signatures you have. We have 4. So in that case, we're going to evenly space out. We need 4 lines going across. So again, I like to fold, or since we have the graph paper, this is where it comes in handy that you can just kind of evenly figure out how to equally space them out by using like number of squares on your graph paper. But I'm gonna also fold this in half this way now. So now we know where the middle is, which means that I want to place 2 signatures on each side of that fold line in an equal manner. So I'm going to use my pen now, and I'm going to put kind of an X where I'm going to be putting an actual hole. So I'm looking at the middle line that was created by folding, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball this, but you can do it exact if you want. So now I know on that, so now, okay, now I know that I want to go ahead and place an X on this middle line on the same exact space where the squares are, if that makes sense. So like this X is right next to this line. So if we come down here on this line where they meet, I'm going to go ahead and place an X. You could use a ruler too. This is just quicker for me. This, and then over here I'm going to line that X up exactly where this meets. I hope that makes sense. And then I'm going to do the same thing all the way across here. So let's see, we have the middle and what? Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So we're going to go like that. And then we're going to follow the same thing down here, and I'm using the lines as a nice guide so I don't really have to do too much math or anything like that, because I don't want to be mathing. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And so now what I like to do is place I like to take this, and we are going to bind, or sorry, I keep using the wrong words. We are going to place this in here, and we are going to punch these holes. It's a good idea to go ahead and tape this down so it doesn't move. Again, this is something that I don't always do, but it is a good thing to start out with. So I'm gonna get some tape. I'm just gonna put one piece of washi tape here so it doesn't rip my insides here. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my awl. It's a good idea to have something underneath here, like maybe an old book or something like that, if you don't want to poke through your finger or your tabletop. I'm not a good example because I don't have anything underneath mine, but I will be careful. So now we're going to punch through. And when I'm doing this, I like to, after that first hole, I like to look over here and just double check, make sure we're on the spine, make sure we're all good to go. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead, and I like to go all the way through. And we're going to take a peek. That looks good to me. So we're just going to continue on down here. Punch all of the holes. And then the bottom. We're going to use this same template on the signatures, because again, that's going to ensure that everything is perfectly lined up as far as the holes go. I'm not a perfect crafter, I'm very messy, I never measure anything like that, but this is one place where you really need to make sure everything is perfectly lined up if you want this to be easy for yourself. Okay, so this is all done, and now what we can do is go ahead and take our signatures. I find it to be very helpful if you use paper clips to hold your pages together. So now go through and just make sure that your pages are exactly as you want them. Make sure if you have any shorter pages that you have them lined up where you want them to be, exactly where they need to be. You might even take some washi tape and washi them down to the pages, just to be sure, if it's, you know, important to you, that they don't move. For me, I'm usually not too specific about where things end up, but we'll leave that up to you. And so how I like to add the paper clips is opened up in the center. I'm going to bring you guys back out a little further so you can really see this. I like to do one on the top of the left page, one on the bottom of the left, not page, but the pages, and then one on the right hand side top and the right hand side bottom. So this is really going to help you out, make sure that everything stays nice and put together. Now I'm going to continue adding the paper clips. Keep your signatures in the order that you want them to be in your journal. So again, make sure everything's exactly where you want it. Open up to the center. Now, this is where preference comes in to decide, is it easier for you to bind the pages before you decorate or after? When I first started out, I definitely found it to be much easier to bind before decorating because you don't have things falling out. And by the way, you can take all this stuff out if you want, but I'm at a point where I can just keep it in and work around it. So the only downfall to, you know, doing it before is you're not going to be able to really know how much space you need in your journal. You might realize that you've totally over decorated and, you know, not left yourself with enough space, and how big your spine is. So that's just kind of all things that come along with learning and figuring out what works for you. I used to totally overstuff all of my journals, and then when I would go to bind them, the whole thing was too fat, and I just could not even close the journal, and I don't personally like that look. So now became very good at figuring out what my limits are for the size of decorations I can add, and with how many pages I can allow myself, and I don't usually ever have to remove things. But if I end up getting it too fat, I definitely will remove pages to make it fit in the journal better, because I want there to be room for the recipient or myself to be able to place memories, pictures, journaling, without worrying that, you know, it's going to be too fat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just add a tiny bit of washi tape to this middle page because it's so small. And I'm just going to finish up placing the paper clips on the last signature. Now you're going to double check that you have your signatures in the exact order you want, and you want all at the top to the bottom. Now it's time to bind the holes in our signatures. I'm going to have them piled to my right hand side here. I'm going to take my first. It doesn't exactly matter right now, but I do like to keep the order pretty perfect, even right now. So now we're going to open up to the middle. We're going to take our template and we're going to place this evenly within the center here. And when I say evenly, it's very likely that your template's going to be a bit longer than your pages if you made your pages smaller than the cover, or the same size. And so you want to make sure and evenly space so that you have the same amount of space at the top as you do at the bottom. And this is not anything that I measure, but as you can see, there's the top and bottom. Just eyeball it, and you really want to make sure that this is down in that crease as good as it can get. And then we're going to go ahead and take our awl, and following the line and right in the center, we're going to go ahead and poke through. So I'm just going by the line that is going across. I'm not following any of the X's because that doesn't matter. We just need to do a hole right in the center on the vertical lines that we've created. And now that we have that done, we're going to continue. I like to do all of the steps at once, so all of the binding, all of the paper clips, you know, everything. I also think that this sticker, I don't think it's supposed to be there, by the way. I'm going to take that off. I was wondering where that came from. So I'm just going to continue grabbing from the top pile, placing this right in the center. And then I kind of fold that on there to make sure that we're in the center. And then bind those holes. And if you have like yarn or fabric or laces, it might take a little bit more power to get through all of those layers, but you should be just fine. Okay, I'm just going to finish up these last two. If you followed all of these steps, you should have perfectly even and matching up binding holes that go through all of the layers of your signatures, and everything should be tightly held into that signature. Okay, so now we're going to take our pile, flip it over so that again we have the very top page, the top signature, second, third, and fourth. I just want to double check again. But now we're going to take this and we're going to flip it over. So you really could have kept it flipped over, but I just like to do a third check. And you are going to cut your twine or binding cloth to be, this is just my rule of thumb, I am going to do about 3 times the height of my journal. So you'll need 4 of these or however many signatures you have. Go ahead and thread this onto your needle. It really helps to have a needle that has, you know, a big enough eye for the different twines that you like to use, binding thread that you like to use, but you also want it to be small enough to where it's not going to put too big of holes into your signatures. By the way, we are going to finish up this side, but we'll do that later. Okay, so now we're going to take the very last signature. So we're working with the last row to the right, and we're going to kind of lay it right where it's matching up to that last hole, that last line of holes. We're going to open up to the center of our signature. I'm going to try to give you a few different views of what this will look like, so don't worry if you don't get it the first time. But you're going to take your needle, and by the way, I didn't tie anything off. I just pulled it through about 2 inches or so. And if you're worried about it falling out, you could put it through more, but you'll just want to have extra thread. We're going to start with the middle hole. We're going to place it through the middle hole and then through the middle hole of the spine. We're going to come all the way out to the back and make sure that you don't pull it all the way through. I always like to make sure that I have a couple inches inside, and you can totally take some washi tape, tape this down if you're worried about it pulling through. I like to hold the signature close to the journal so it doesn't pull away. And then we're going to go up to the top hole. We're going to go in through here, and it's okay if it's moving around and stuff, but you want to try to line it up to the hole, the top hole of the signature. Hold this in so it doesn't pull, but then pull this as tight as you can all the way through. And I always like to check and make sure that it did not get caught on anything. And then we're going to go down to the bottom hole and make sure that you're in that very last line that last row of holes. You're going to pull it all the way out, again making sure that you don't pull all the way through. And then you're going to go back up to that center hole, which we already had come out of once, and you're going to go into it. Try not to make your needle go into the thread because it can get kind of messy that way. No worries if you do though. So in through the center hole, and this is where you're really going to have to bring it up to your eyes to see that you are coming in through that center hole and that you can get it into the center hole of the signature. And if you have everything tightened up as you go, it usually lines right up. And then you're going to make sure to pull that all the way through. I like to flip it over again and make sure that it's not caught on anything. I'm going to take the needle off now because we don't need that. Now, I think that I did go through the other thread, but it's okay. I'll just kind of pull them apart as best I can. And then you're going to take one of the ends. You want one end to be on one side of that center line of, or that center twine, and one on the other, if that makes sense. And then you're just going to go ahead and tie a knot, and you have just sewn in your first signature. And we're just going to follow the same exact steps for the next 3. Really make sure this is as tight as it can without like pulling too much on the papers or anything. I like to do a double knot, and then you can go ahead and trim. If you want these to be, you know, longer than the page so that you can put some beads or something at the end, go for it. I actually should have done that. I'll do it on the next one maybe. So now we're going to do the same thing. Now we're going to work with the second to the last signature. And we are going to open up to the center. We're going to follow the same exact steps. Start with the center hole, making sure to go out the center hole on the second to the last row, holding that close to the spine as you can. Make sure to pull that all the way out. Sorry, not all the way out. Make sure to pull it out, leaving a couple inches of the string inside. Go up to the top. So you're going to go back in through the book, and you are going to go back in through the top hole. Then we're going to go, now sometimes you might rip a little piece of the paper if you had your hole too close to the top, because I didn't pay attention to where I was punching that, but it's just going to be just fine. So tighten this up, and then we're going to go to the bottom, and we're going to go out the bottom. Then we're going to pull that out, and we're going to go back up to the center hole into the center of this signature. And then again, you're going to make sure that you have everything tightened up. One end of the string on each side of where that center string goes down from the top to the bottom, and go ahead and do a double knot. And that is all, my folks, my loves. I'm going to leave these strings long so I can put some beads on at the end. So now just follow the same steps, bind the last 2, and you are good. Now the very last signature can be a little bit trickier since it's going to be a little bit more cramped, but just take your time with it. Don't force it. I know that I was just out of view, but I just wanted to say that. Don't give up. It can be a little challenging, but you really just got to take your time and make sure that everything is fitting nice and tight again. I think I'm going to add beads to the center 2 signatures, and I'll show you what that will look like. And see, it can be really easy to get stuck on tags and things like that, so just be mindful. I find it really helpful to bind these, to bind journals almost on the edge of a table, because I can have the table holding everything up, but I can have it hanging off the edge so that I can kind of look underneath and see where the holes are, so I can see like where I'm sticking the needle into. So definitely try that. I usually have them very close to my eyes and everything too, so it's a little trickier when filming, but there we go. And this to me is the most exciting and satisfying part, which is where we get to go ahead and take off all of the paper clips. And this is where the journal really comes to life. So go ahead, go through, take out all of the paper clips. Then we can place the tassel back on. I gotta cover the inside of the back cover, and we'll go ahead and place some of the beads. Okay, yes, yes, yes. This was such a fun journal to make. It's definitely not like my usual style, and that's what I always love about a challenge, but now you can see what it all looks like. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I have those strings right here. I'm just gonna grab a couple beads. So I'm gonna take maybe a couple of the star beads. Those are kind of my favorite ones. Oh, maybe the hearts too, actually. Yeah, we'll do 2 hearts and 2 stars. Okay, and I'm just going to bead them on as normal. And then I just like to leave a little bit of extra space so that you can kind of have them dangling. And so then I'll just tie a couple knots, and then you have some really cute little additions to the bottom of your journal. And it's easy enough to cut them off if, you know, they are bothersome. But I have a few journals that have them, and it doesn't seem to be a problem, and I just like the extra dangle. So I'm gonna add these on. So there we have the dangles. Super cute. Some of them are, maybe it could have been a little bit longer, but now you get the point. Okay, I need to change this out, which I'll probably show in the next video, which will be a final flip through. And for now, I think all I have left to do is I'm gonna cover this page using one of our marbled papers. So I'm just gonna cover this, add the tassel, and then this will be, I think, the last thing I'm gonna do. I will do a final look just to make sure I don't want to add anything, and you guys will be able to see what the final journal looks like on the next video. I am just so excited. Can't believe we're here, and I cannot wait for the next challenge. I hope that you guys found this to be easy, especially if it was your first, it's going to be your first time binding. Please let me know if it was helpful, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.